Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be speaking about the 1925 Stone Mountain Commemorative half dollar and going over everything from its values, especially at different grade ranges, its extensive backstory, as well as the context in which it was minted. This one has a particularly interesting one. We're also going to be discussing die varieties. There aren't any mint errors that I was able to find, but really all of the information that you'd want to know. I'm doing a greater series on all the classic commemoratives, and this is one of the more involved ones with a big history. So I'm excited to do it. Let's get right into the presentation. So here we've got an incredible example of one of these Stone Mountain commemoratives. The design, as you can see, is pretty unbelievable. This toning is certainly super, super advanced and interesting, but we'll start with the non-sort of die variety, double die, obverse, or counter stamp, the real extra history. I think that the first thing is the designer Gutzon Borglum, probably the most interesting name I've seen as a U.S. coin designer. But I think that in terms of the portrayal, what's really being shown here is Confederate generals Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, who fought in the Civil War, as well as the back shows an eagle, but Stone Mountain along with, or maybe not Stone Mountain, it's just a perch, but memorial to the valor of the soldier of the South. This was during a time in which, in American history, where there was a lot of glorification and sort of a recovery and resurgence of Southern identity. It wasn't like right after the Civil War when the Confederacy seceded from the Union. They lose, they're defeated, and then sort of the Southern pride sort of and rebellion almost continues right from then. It was sort of, there were regressive steps and more of a Southern identity emerging in the early 20th century, and this was part of that. There was that was really when a lot of the monuments were going up, Confederate monuments, that sort of thing, and I think that this coin was part of that. In fact, it was the second most minted classic commemorative half dollar behind the 1893. It was 1892 and 1893. They had a Columbian exposition 400 years after 1492. So this was one of the most seen and most sort of purchased half dollars in this classic commemorative series. They were sold for $1 coins, so it would be 50 cents of profit that were, I think it went to the Stone Mountain Confederate Monumental Association, basically providing financing for a lot of the Confederate monuments. And there was also sort of this interesting layer, which we'll get into later, but there were these GL and SL designations for gold and silver lavalier women, basically young women that sold a lot of these and promoted them. It was sort of Southern identity wrapped up into a coin, and again, sort of showing the valor of the soldier of the South. There was a cultural significance in these coins. They also would be sold to, they were sold around the South, like I mentioned, so different coins would have different counter stamps with states on them. Before we talk about that, we'll talk about the values, though. These are pretty abundant, and they're not super expensive, so really they get expensive once you hit mint state 66, and then the jump to 67 is more significant. But you can find a regular example for like $50, maybe a low mint state for not too much more than $100. So there's plenty of them out there, and few circulated. The mintage of 1,314,709 sounds quite low, but compared to a lot of the other classic commemoratives, it's not. The double die obverse is actually pretty clear. It's most easily seen in the Stone Mountain and the 1925 lettering on the obverse, but it's sort of a north spread. It's all in the bottom of Stone and Mountain. The values aren't super separate, but there's a nice premium, probably 50% more value if you find one with it. So since these aren't super cheap coins, it's worth checking. It'll certainly help your coin sell. They're more desirable than ones without the double die obverse. Now, the counter stamps here we see, it says 63 and miss. These, some of them, the counter stamps are not too much more valuable, but most of the time they are significantly more valuable even compared to the double die obverse. So these values aren't really super accurate. There were different, state abbreviations. So Mississippi in this example. Over here, this coin was for a gold lavalier would have been presented to a young woman in Oklahoma who sold a ton of these. This sold for $1,000 in 2004. And the coins, it's a little bit unclear to me exactly how they were sort of given out, but under the governor's direction of each of these southern states, there would be a list of all units, which were towns with a coin quota, and they would be prepared, and then there would be a drawing where the different units would get different coins, each numbered, and then again, sometimes with the gold lavalier or silver lavalier stamp. So, a little bit of added history. You might not think, sure, it shows some a tribute to the Confederacy, but there was sort of a greater macro environment where the South was almost trying to write its own history and try to glamorize something in a way that wasn't being glamorized directly after their loss and failure to secede from the Union. Hope that you enjoyed this little history lesson. It's a very interesting coin. I think it's always, there's a lot of different coins with a lot of real meaning to them, and I like learning a little bit more about them. So thank you for watching this video, and I'm going to be covering a lot of the other classic commemoratives, which each have their own interesting history. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like the video, comment, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. And I also have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and some other social media platforms. You can also go to my main channel website, treasuretownYT.com, to learn more about the channel and sort of stay in contact. I also will eventually host all of these videos on coinsmetalscards.com, which will be both news, marketplace, and coin information. I do have the goal of eventually getting pretty much every US coin, date, mint mark, denomination on the channel with a similar video to the one that you just watched, and that will likely all be hosted there. And then I also have treasuretowncoins.com, which is sort of my coin dealing wing, coin dealing only entity that is a little bit less focused on content production. So thank you so much, and I'll look forward to seeing you on some of my other videos. I also have videos that are not just the date, mint mark, denomination recap in this format, so you can check some of those out, and I'll have fun seeing you there.